Page 6 now. Radical Islam in America. In Garland, Texas, one of the gunmen who tried to massacre people at an art event was apparently a known domestic terrorist. The Islamic State is now claiming responsibility for this attack, which resulted in a security guard being wounded and the two suspects dead. The shooting happened at a Draw Muhammad contest.
There were calls to not have this event. There were calls by various groups, religious groups and other cultural groups, which said that precisely this type of incident was going to be promoted by an event such as this one. That is a desire to cause instability, a desire to cause conflict between Muslims in the United States and between right-wing Christian groups and right-wing reactionaries of various kinds.
We should stop the immigration of people from Islamic countries. We should de-Islamize our society. The message, stop Islam and defend freedom, is a message that is not only important for the Netherlands, but is something that is important for the whole free Western world.
Okay, so the event was designed to elicit controversy, but so what? Under the First Amendment, it had every right to be held. And local police did a great job of keeping the people safe and unharmed. Still, that's not good enough for some on the left. These socialists want more. Joining me now, author, speaker, strategic consultant, and Daily Ledger contributor, T.J. O'Hara. T.J., the more I'm talking about here, some believe from the Obama administration there is an effort, maybe not so subtle effort, to nationalize police. And certainly at least one of the very important Obama advisors is pushing for this.
Well, Al Sharpton is pushing for it. He was in Baltimore the other day saying that the Justice Department should step in and police the United States. Now, it's interesting. Al's an entertaining guy because the Reverend Al is in Baltimore, and one of the things he does is criticize the media, of which he's a member, and he's criticizing them about exploiting the Baltimore scenario, which he's doing. So he's kind of wrong on so many levels, it's difficult to ferret it out. But he wants the Justice Department to step in and police the United States because he said the states are no longer capable of doing it. He unfortunately says this the day before the state of Maryland indicts the police officers who were involved in the incident, pretty much rendering his argument null and void. But the interesting thing is, can you imagine if the Justice Department were to take up the cause and were to try and intervene on behalf of the United States as the police force? What if they pursued tax cheats? After all, Al's got about a $4.5 million backlog of taxes that he hasn't paid. He might be the first one up.
Wouldn't that be nice? Now, speaking of tax cheats, there's a guy out there who is all in favor of this heavy progressive income tax that we have right now, but he has his own tax problem.
Well, you must be talking about George Soros, because George, who's like the poster child of the rich must pay their fair share, and also a person who underwrote a lot of the Occupy movement, apparently has a little problem with taxes himself. There was a law and a loophole that he exploited in taxation where he moves his client fees into his own accounts, his own funds, and therefore avoided taxes until 2008 when that loophole was eliminated. But just before it was, he moved $13.3 billion offshore to try and continue to avoid it. Well, it turns out that that may not be legal, so they're trying to unwind that. He could be writing a check for $6.7 billion. So for all those people who are out there in a tent eating a can of beans, cheering for the 99%, think how many of the 99% George Soros could support with that $6.7 billion tax check.
Yeah, and he's probably also criticizing the companies that operate outside the borders of the United States so they can mitigate their tax exposure, because all these people, as we know, are hypocrites. Meantime, the Congress is trying to infuse a little transparency into the least transparent presidential administration in the history of this country.
Well, the EPA, for example, uses a thing called particulate matter in the atmosphere. And the benefit of that is used to probably justify about 97% of the regulations. The challenge is they use kind of jaded science, if you will. They take scientists who were insiders, who are, many of whom are funded by the EPA, and so have a bias, and they use their science as the metric. So one of the senatorial committees tried to resolve that. So they proffered a bill that says you have to be transparent about this. You have to use the best settled science and make it public so that the people can test against that, make sure that you're using unbiased data. You would think that the obstructionists in D.C. couldn't even attack that the flat earthers couldn't attack that. But wait a minute, in this case, the obstructionists and the flat earthers are Barbara Boxer and the White House. Mm-hmm. Barbara Boxer's appalled at this whole thing, and the White House has already said that it'll veto it. So the problem is they don't want well-settled science using if it becomes politically unsettling.
Speaking of politically unsettling, the so-called fight of the century, which in my opinion was the dud of the century, the mainstream media, you know, they're giving pretty much Mayweather, who has a criminal record, a pass on that, while attacking Manny Pacquiao for being a Christian.
Well, it is interesting. The fight was somewhat cast as good versus evil, with Mayweather playing the role of evil, predominantly predicated on his vast history of domestic violence. And yet you have the Huffington Post coming out and saying, don't be so fast to cast him as evil because Manny Pacquiao is suspect too. You see, in 2010, Manny Pacquiao, as a congressman of the Philippines, actually cast a vote against increasing government spending on contraception. But beyond that, he had the audacity to support the Constitution of the Philippines, which says that abortion should be illegal. So this is a person who not only is against free contraception, but he actually honors his oath of office and supports the Constitution. We just can't have that.
No,
That's
we're not
clearly evil.
We're not used to that in this country. Let's face it.
Exactly.
Good for him. TJ, thanks.